And Sampson went from there to Gaza, and there he saw a woman, a prostitute, and went in to her. And the Gazites were told, saying, Samson has come here. And they circled around and lay in wait for him all night by the city gate. And they kept quiet all night, saying, Let us wait until the light, when it is early, and let us kill him. And Samson lay until midnight. And about midnight he rose up, and took hold of the doors of the city gate, and the 2 posts, and pulled them up, bar and all, and put them on his shoulder, and carried them to the top of the mountain that faces the front of Hebron, and set them down there. And it came about after this that he fell in love with a woman by the Wadi Sorek, and her name was Delilah. And the satraps of the Aliphiles came up to her and said to her, Deceive him, and see in what his great strength lies, and how we may be strong against him and bind him, so as to subdue him. And we, for our part, will give you a man 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me in what your great strength lies, and by what means you may be bound, so that you could be subdued. And Samson said to her, If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, that have not been left abandoned, I shall both become weak and be like one of men. And the satraps of the Aliphiles brought her 7 fresh bowstrings, that had not been left abandoned, and she bound him with them. And his ambush was sitting in the storeroom, and she said to him, Aliphiles are upon you, Samson. And he broke the bowstrings, as a strand shaken off snaps when it smells fire, and his strength was not known. And Delilah said to Samson, Look, you have deceived me and told me lies. Now then, do tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, If they bind me with a binding, with 7 new cords, with which no work has been done, I shall both become weak and be like one of men. And Delilah took new cords for him, and bound him with them, and said to him, The Aliphiles are upon you, Samson. And the ambush was sitting in the storeroom, and he snapped the cords off his arms like a thread. And Delilah said to Samson, Until now you have deceived me and told me lies. Do tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, If you weave the 7 plates of my head with the warp and hammer them into the wall with a peg, I shall also become weak, like one of men. And Delilah lulled him to sleep, and she made the 7 locks of his head the warp with the stretching out, and hammered them into the wall with the pegs. And she said to him, The Aliphiles are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep, and pulled away the pegs along with the web from the wall and the warp, and his strength was not known. And Delilah said to him, How can you say I love you, and your heart is not with me? This is the 3rd time you have deceived me, and have not told me in what your great strength lies. And it came about, when she had overpowered him with her words for the entire night and had pestered him, that he was tired to death. And he told her everything from his heart, and said to her, A razor will not come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite of God from my mother's belly. And if I am shaved, my strength will leave me, and I will become weak, and be as all men are. And Delilah realized that he had told her everything from his heart. And she sent and called all the satraps of the Aliphiles, saying, Come up this once, for he has told his whole heart to me. And all the satrapies of the Aliphiles came up to her, and brought the money in their hands. And she lulled him to sleep between her knees, and she called a barber, and he shaved off the 7 locks of his head. And he began to weaken, and his strength left him. And Delilah said to him, The Aliphiles are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out, and do as I have always done, and shake myself free. And he himself did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Aliphiles seized him, and gouged out his eyes. And they led him down to Gaza, and bound him with bronze shackles. And he was grinding grain in the prison house. And the hair of his head began to grow again, after it had been shaved. And the satraps of the Aliphiles gathered to sacrifice a great sacrifice to their god Dagon, and to rejoice. And they said, Our God has delivered Samson our enemy in our hand. And the people saw him, and praised their God. And they said, Our God has delivered our enemy in our hand, yes, the ravager of our country, who multiplied our wounded. And it came about, when their heart was merry, that they said, Call Samson from the prison house, and let him perform before us. And they called Samson out of the prison house, and were making fun of him. and they placed him between the two pillars. And Sampson said to the lad who held him by the hand, "Do let me rest, and make me feel the pillars, those on which the house rests, and I will lean against them." Now the boy did so. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the satraps of the Aliphiles were there. And on top of the house there were about 3,000 men and women, watching Sampson being made fun of. And Sampson called out to the Lord and said, "Lord, Lord, remember me, and do strengthen me only this once more, and I will exact one act of revenge from the Aliphiles in return for my 2 eyes." And Sampson embraced the 2 middle pillars, those on which the house rested, and he leaned against them, one in his right hand and one in his left hand. And Sampson said, "Let my soul die with the Aliphiles." And he leaned with strength, and the house fell on the satraps and on all the people who were in it. And the dead whom Sampson put to death at his death were more numerous above those he had put to death during his life. And his brothers and all his father's house came down, and took him and went up and buried him between Sarah and Eshcol, in the tomb of his father Manoah. And he himself judged Israel 20 years. And there was a man from the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Micah. And he said to his mother, 1,100 pieces of silver, those that were taken for you, and you administered an oath and spoke in my hearing. See, the silver is in my possession. I took it. And his mother said, My son is blessed to the Lord. And he returned the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, By an act of consecration, I consecrated the silver to the Lord from my hand, setting it apart to make a carved object and a cast object. And now I will return them to you, and will give it back to you. And he returned the silver to his mother. And his mother took 200 pieces of the silver, and gave it to the smelter. And he made it into a carved object and a cast object. And it came to be in the house of Micah. As for the man Micah, he had a house of God, and he made ephod and teraphim, and filled the hand of one of his sons, and he became for a priest to him. In those days there was no king in Israel. A man would do what was good in his own eyes. And there was a lad of Bethlehem, division of Judah, of the clan of Judah, himself a Levite, and he himself lived there as a resident alien. And the man went from the city of Judah, from Bethlehem, to live as resident alien wherever he could find. And he came to the hill country of Ephraim, as far as the house of Micah, to make his journey. And Micah said to him, From where do you come? And he replied, I am a Levite out of Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to live as resident alien wherever I can find. And Micah said to him, Settle with me, and become for a father and for a priest to me, and I for my part will give you 10 pieces of silver for days, and a set of clothes and what you need to live on. And the Levite went and began to live as a resident alien with the man. And the lad became to him like one of his sons. And Micah filled the Levite's hand, and the lad became for a priest to him, and was in the house of Micah. And Micah said, Now I know that the Lord favors me, because the Levite has become for a priest to me. In those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of Dan was seeking an inheritance for itself to live in, for up to those days no inheritance had fallen to their lot in the midst of the tribes of Israel. And the sons of Dan sent out 5 men from their clans, from part of them, sons of power, from Sarah and Eshcol, to spy out the land and to explore it. And they said to them, Go and search out the land. And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, as far as the house of Micah, and they rested there. While they were near Micah's house, they also themselves recognized the voice of the young lad, the Levite, and they went over and said to him, Who brought you here? And what are you doing here? And what is your business here? And he said to them, Micah did such and such for me, and he hired me, and I became for a priest to him. And they said to him, Do inquire by God, and we will know whether the journey, that upon which we are going, succeeds. And the priest said to them, Go in peace, your journey, that upon which you are going, is before the Lord. And the 5 men went on, and they came to Lysha, and they observed the people who were living in it, settled in hope, according to the decision of the Sidonians, resting in hope, and unable to speak a word, for they were far from Sidon, and had no word with Syria. And the 5 men came to their brothers at Sarah and Eshcol, and their brothers were saying to them, Why are you sitting down? And they said, Get up, and let us go up against them. For we have entered and journeyed about in the land as far as Lysa. And we saw the people who live in it, in hope, according to the judgment of the Sidonians. And they were far away, away from Sidon. And they had no word with Syria. But get up, and let us go up against them. For we have found the land, and see, it is very good. And will you keep silent? Do not hesitate to come and inherit the land. Whenever you enter, you will come to a trusting people, and the land is broad, for God has delivered it in your hand. A place, there where there is no lack of every matter, everything on earth. And 600 men of the clan of Dan, armed with military implements, set out from Sarah and Eshcol, and went up and encamped at Kiriatharim in Judah. On this account that place is called Dan's camp to this day. See, it is behind Kiriatharim. And there they passed on, and came as far as the hill country of Ephraim, and came as far as the house of Micah. And the 5 men who were going to spy out the land answered and said to their brothers, Do you know that in these buildings there are ephod, teraphim, a carved object, and a cast object? So now consider what you will do. And they turned in that direction, and entered the house of the lad, the Levite, at the home of Micah, and greeted him. And the 600 men who were armed with military implements were standing like pillars by the door at the gateway, those are the sons of Dan. And the 5 men who were going to spy out the land went up. They came there and took the carved object, the ephod, the teraphim, and the cast object. And the priest was standing like a pillar by the door at the gateway, and the 600 men armed with military implements. And they went into Micah's house, and took the carved object, the ephod, the teraphim, and the cast object. And the priest said to them, What are you doing? And they said to him, Keep quiet, put your hand over your mouth, and come with us, and you will be to us for a father and for a priest. Is it better that you should be priest to the house of one man, than that you should become priest to a tribe and clan in Israel? And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod, the teraphim, the carved object, and the cast object, and went into the midst of the people. And they turned around and departed and positioned the whole household, and his esteemed possession in front of them. Now when they had gone a long distance from the home of Micah, then see, Micah and the men who belonged to the house with Micah were crying out behind the sons of Dan. And the sons of Dan turned their faces around and said to Micah, What is the matter that you cried out? And Micah said, Because you took my carved object that I made for myself and the priest and went away, and what have I left? And why do you say this to me? Why do you cry out like this? And the sons of Dan said to him, Your voice had better not be heard with us, or else men who are afflicted in soul will attack you, and you will add your life and the lives of your household. And the sons of Dan went on their way, and Micah saw that they were too strong for him, and he turned away and went back to his home. And they took everything Micah had made, and the priests who belonged to him, and came as far as Lysa, to a people quiet and trusting. And they struck them down with the edge of the sword, and burned down the city. And there was none to deliver, because it was far from Sidonians, and they had no word with people. And it was in a valley that belongs to the house of Rehob. And they built the city and lived in it. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of their ancestor who was born to Israel. And the city formerly had the name Lais. And the sons of Dan set up Micah's carved object for themselves. And Jonathan, son of Gershom, son of Moses, he and his sons were priests for the tribe of Dan, until the day of the removal from the land. And they appointed for themselves Micah's carved object that he had made. All the days of the house of God was at Shiloh.